The NAE regions are going to be releasing with these 15 classes confirmed. We'll be talking about the basic identity and style for each class from a PvE aspect as well as a PvP aspect. Each class will have a PvE performance rating given to us by KR's rank 1 player JIDAU. Obviously, there are different builds that you can run with for each class, so take this as you will. Also, there's nothing I'd appreciate more than a like and subscribe button push, as it really helps my channel grow. I'm streaming live on Twitch 5 days a week, and that is the absolute best way to connect with me personally. Otherwise, our Discord, which also happens to have a lot of guys that we've been putting together for a lot of you new players that are looking for help, whether that's in the form of builds, basic guides, beginner guides, whatever that may be. You can find all that information in the Discord. Links in the description below. Final note here, I didn't have footage for every single class for PvE and PvP, so I did take some footage from other content creators to represent some of these classes, show them some love. You can find their links in the description below. The name fits the bill on this one, and as a Berserker, expect to make heavy impact every time you connect with your skills. Berserkers are on the slower end when it comes to the speed of their attacks, meaning slower animations and higher base cooldowns. But when you land your damage, it makes a dent. Of all the other warrior classes, Berserker is the squishiest, but not to be confused with it actually being squishy. On the other end of it, they have the best mobility and burst damage of the warrior group. Their class identity skill allows them to go into a Berserk mode, which is exactly that. High attack speeds, movement speed, damage, and even a Berserk specific skill. If you like the idea of running around with a giant greatsword and just dishing out huge burst damage, this is it. PvP wise, Berserkers are not the best initiators. Instead, Berserkers shine when a team can play around the Berserker's cooldowns and set up attack opportunities for him. If a team can successfully do this, the Berserker is an insanely powerful class even at the highest levels of play. This, however, also means that this class can be a bit comp sensitive compared to others, seeing as you won't be able to create opportunities as well as some of the other top tier melee classes. Berserkers have a very powerful all-around kit that's very useful for 3v3 team play, but you're balanced by slower and telegraph skills. Despite being a warrior class, Paladin is one of the 2 true support classes. If you wish to be more of a Ret Pally from WoW, where you focus on more of an offensive output style, you may choose to do so, but don't expect to be at the top of the DPS meters. Not that they exist. Paladins will require a good sense of positioning and placement of skills, and focuses more on keeping your party alive than dealing damage. The identity of this class allows you to either focus on damage output or support. Probably the edgiest looking class in the game. I should mention that this class is just very aesthetically pleasing, and if you're into that holy archetype, this is definitely going to hit home for you. I was honestly tempted to play this class just because of how badass the costumes looked for it. In PvP, Paladins are best played as a support and CC role. Its ideal kit allows it to be an extremely powerful support, allowing shields and damage reduction to his teammates. While there are DPS builds out there and about a ton of high damage number pub stomping videos on YouTube, that style of play simply falls off the higher you go, as other classes have the ability to dish out damage a lot more easier, a lot more effectively. While Paladins lack in terms of CC protection, they make up for it with access to a lot of damage mitigation and range. Paladins have sneaky good range and have quite a few mid-range knockups that increase in range with their identity buff up. Of the 2 true support classes, Paladin is the more offensive version compared to its counterpart, Bard. If you like the idea of playing a support role, but would rather look like a badass edgy holy knight instead of your typical cloth wearing female, this is the class for you. The tank class of Lost Ark, Gunlancer, is a super beefy, damage absorbing, no mobility class. With access to a ton of damage mitigation, Gunlancer is by far the tankiest class in the game. In fact, it's a bit of a hybrid, as it's seen as an off-support DPS tank. While you are handicapped with some of the worst mobility in the game, you can literally ignore boss mechanics due to your tankiness. You're designed to take hits. On top of that, you also have access to taunts and pulls, giving you more of that tank feel. Gunlancers have some pretty good burst damage, but outside of those windows, the damage is pretty low. Gunlancers have a strong presence in the PvP scene. Similar to PvE, they provide strong shields to their teammates while providing strong utility in the form of pulls and counters. When it comes to strengths and weaknesses, Gunlancers are very strong against melee, but they struggle against ranged. While being an off support in PvP, they also have solid damage in the form of burst. While they won't be at the top of the damage charts, the burst windows are solid, making them a legitimate threat. The first male martial artist class. It's no surprise that the founder's costume is the Ryu outfit. The class itself feels very much like a fighter with multiple skills that were probably inspired by Street Fighter's Ryu. Damage comes in the form of burst windows, as strikers have identity skills that require meter, which is gained by applying damage. Build meter, burst in the form of punches and kicks, pretty straightforward. Striker is a true melee class with high mobility in PvP. Very comparable to Wardancer, Striker would be more of the offensive version of that class. One of the more faster paced classes when it comes to PvP, Strikers can move around the arena extremely well, engaging and disengaging very quickly. The skill design allows Strikers to not only be agile, but also be very creative with their engages, as you can weave skills together. Strikers output damage in the form of combos and have the ability to juggle targets for long periods of time. However, this is also a downside, seeing as Strikers don't have strong quick burst potential, and the lack of protection to CC makes them vulnerable when trying to juggle targets. The small hitboxes with lack of protection can make this very punishing, especially for newer players. Before Striker, there was Wardancer. Punches and kicks will fly, as the gameplay feels like a true melee martial artist that has a meter and lets it go. Unlike its Striker counterpart, her damage isn't reliant on her meter dump, as she applies buffs and debuffs, then burns her cooldowns during that window, making her less burstier but solid with sustained damage. The buffs and debuffs that the Wardancer has also brings a lot of value to the team. Due to the fact that she's pretty much just burning skills off cooldown, the difficulty to truly master a Wardancer is one of the lowest in the game. In PvP, Wardancer plays as the defensive version of Striker. The kit is very similar, as they have some of the same skills. However, the playstyle is still a little bit different in the sense that while Striker focuses more on the offensive output, Wardancers offer more support to their team in the form of damage reduction and buffs. Because of this, Wardancers are good frontliners that can open up opportunities for their team rather than being a damage carry. They suffer the same issues that Strikers do with the small hitboxes and lack of CC protection. Furthermore, they aren't quite as mobile and creative with their engages as their Striker counterpart, but they do make up for this in the form of support. If you want to play a class that gives you giant gauntlets while punching everything and flying around, this could be the class for you. Scrapper is a bit unique compared to the other martial artists due to its identity. Scrappers have 2 meters and 2 types of skills, yellow and green. To put it plainly, you'll be alternating between the two, as using a yellow skill will consume the yellow meter while giving you more green meter, and the green skills vice versa. I should also mention that Scrappers are also specialists when it comes to destruction and impairment, which are very useful for boss fights, as every raid will have these phases where destruction and impairment are needed. Scrappers in PvP can feel very powerful due to the amount of super armors the class has access to. High damage, low cooldowns, and a lot of super armors make it a very forgiving class to play. However, what balances the Scrapper in PvP are its longer skill animations, which can be punished by hard CCs by better teams and players. Should also note that Scrappers are the only class in the game that is able to use the spacebar dash twice, but at the cost of a higher cooldown when used. Known as the Dragon Ball Z characters, Soulfist come equipped with both range and melee skills. If you're into a martial artist style class that can shoot energy balls, this is the class for you. Soulfists have a power stance identity that allows them to charge up their ki up to 4 times or 4 levels for a certain period of time. Each time you charge up, you'll be doing more damage. Once you go through all the levels though, there will be a cooldown period where you don't do very much damage. PvP wise, Soulfist should always have a place in the meta as a high-end class due to its off support. Outside of the 2 true support classes, Bard and Paladin, Soulfist along with Warlord are the 2 best off support classes for a team. Soulfist can provide buffs for their team, including a very good damage reduction buff. Her off support is not to be confused with low damage output, however. Soulfists can be very scary when they're in their appropriate levels, especially due to the fact that everything is enhanced, including things things such as shorter CC durations and even lower cooldowns on roll. Soulfists are definitely a very solid class for PvP at all levels. Like their male counterpart Deadeye, Gunslingers come equipped with 3 weapons: pistol, shotgun, and rifle. The identity of Gunslingers allow you to alternate freely between each one to deal damage to your enemies. Expect to spend a decent amount of time short range with your pistols and shotguns as you will long range with your rifle. Outside of the fact that you have arguably the best sustained damage in the game, you're also very mobile, but at the cost of being the squishiest. Gunslingers in PvP are also a force to be reckoned with and should be a top choice performance-wise for the Western release. Having multiple super armors and the ability to deal with melee while being strong versus range make a good gunslinger very scary to deal with. As someone who can catch opposing range classes while being able to defend against melee, gunslingers have strong combo damage with a good ability of controlling FOV positioning. If you're thinking of playing gunslinger for PvP, expect to have to aim well as a lot of the hitboxes are narrow. This also makes this class not the ping friendliest. Originally known as the Blaster, an Artillerist comes equipped with a massive launcher and focuses on nuking targets. The Artillerist is pretty balanced when it comes to burst versus sustain, but lacks in the mobility department. Having a very unique identity, Artillerists can go into a turret mode where they can mow down targets with turret specific skills. Keep in mind though, you are stationary during this stance and it can be pretty punishing if you're caught from boss mechanics. Despite being a gunner, expect to spend a lot of time mid to close range to maximize damage, but in return you are pretty beefy and able to soak up damage pretty well. When an Artillerist is in the arena, they can deal insane amounts of damage if left untouched. Artillerists have the best combo damage in the game, so if they catch someone, that player will lose at least half of his HP bar, maybe even more. On top of this fact, they come protected with shields that can also absorb incoming attacks. The playstyle of an Artillerist is a very defensive one as their kit is not designed around initiating. As strong as this kit sounds, one of the drawbacks is that it is a very predictable class, making it easily counterable. In order for an Artillerist to do damage, he needs to land that combo, and sometimes that can be easier said than done. Like its female counterpart, Gunslinger, Deadeye also comes equipped with 3 weapons: pistol, shotgun, and rifle. The identity of Gunslingers allow you to alternate freely between each one to deal damage to your enemies. Expect to spend a decent amount of time short range with your pistols and shotguns as you will long range with your rifle. Outside of the fact that you have strong sustained damage, you're also very mobile, but at the cost of being the squishiest. I should mention that Deadeye uniquely has a pistol-only build, which is considered at this moment an off-meta build endgame. It's no surprise that Deadeye plays very similar to Gunslinger. There are subtle differences making them slightly unique to each other in the sense that Deadeye, when compared to Gunslinger, is a bit more effective versus melee classes while being less effective versus ranged. Otherwise, everything else is virtually the same in the sense that they have multiple super armors, strong combo damage, with a solid ability of controlling FOV positioning. If you're thinking of playing Deadeye for PvP, expect to have to aim well as a lot of the hitboxes are narrow. This also makes this class not the ping friendliest. Say hello to your bow and arrow class. While you'll spend a lot of time at range, you also have short range skills that you'll be weaving into your rotation, giving you an in and out dynamic playstyle. Its identity gives him the ability to summon hawks, which you can use to apply additional damage to your target. You can expect to have less burst but strong sustained damage with Sharpshooter. The hardest hitting skills do come from range with your bow, so you'll definitely have that Sharpshooter feel. In PvP, the Sharpshooter is your stealth-based class that fares well at harassing. The general playstyle of a Sharpshooter revolves around going in and out of stealth and damaging targets from afar with your bow, or CCing targets close out of stealth, then retreating after your damage is applied. Your kit allows you to kite and escape very well, however, this gimmicky playstyle can be predictable and punishing when caught. While Sharpshooters can definitely solo carry early games, that performance starts to drop off the higher you get. However, we have seen Sharpshooters perform at the highest levels, as there were a few Sharpshooters competing in the previous Royal Roaders tournament. When you think support in Lost Ark, the first class that you think of is Bard. Elegance is what comes to mind, as bards wield a harp and play music to cast support skills and deal damage. If you're looking to play a class that solely focuses on support, then Bard is right up your alley, as the support provides multiple buffs for teammates. Don't expect to spam support skills non-stop, as endgame raids require you to be strategic with your abilities, and having class advanced knowledge will bolster your team's performance through your play. A good bard's presence will be absolutely felt by a team, and she can make or break a team's overall performance. Its identity is pretty straightforward, as you'll have a meter and you'll build that up, and you spend the meter by providing buffs or heals for your team. Despite bard being a top tier support class, you may also play it as a DPS role and find some success, as its sustained damage isn't bad. This, however, requires a full commitment to DPS for the build, and it can be rather expensive and time consuming, as you'll need 2 different sets. If you're confident in PvP and you can walk the walk, you will absolutely shine in the upper ranks of PvP. In fact, you'll be loved. You may not be a highlight reel, but you will certainly be the backbone of the group. At the Grandmaster rank, you'd be safe in placing your money on the team that has the support over the team that doesn't. Bards are one of the 2 classes in Lost Ark that can successfully fill the support role of a team, providing crucial support skills in the form of shields and even CC immunity. Despite having poor mobility, surprisingly enough, bards can hold their own and can help finish off targets, as they do have skills that do some decent damage. One of the major downsides, however, is that climbing the ranks may be a bit more difficult than other classes, as you will not be able to do much damage overall, and you will be reliant on your DPS teammates. However, the more effective you play as a bard, the level of teammates you need to climb won't be as high. The Zookeeper class of Lost Ark. Summoners come equipped with pets that deal damage, as she uses elemental based magic skills to dish damage. You won't spend much time maneuvering around as a summoner, as they have relatively poor mobility. However, you will be able to remain at range with an arsenal of skills, including skills from your pets. Assuming the aesthetics of this class is up your alley, if you're looking for a more straightforward, easy to pick up class, this could be it for you. Just note that the summoned pets may be frustrating at times, and the hardest hitting skill has a bit of a cast time, making it more susceptible to miss as raid bosses do move around. From a PvP standpoint, if you're asking yourself, what's the easiest class that I can play that will allow me to climb the highest? This is the class. The straightforwardness and easy to pick up aspects follow through to PvP, and as a summoner you can expect to do very high amounts of damage that requires little effort. Outside of the mobility, which is its weak point, the kit is overall very solid. Having pets that can not only damage targets for you, but CC them as well, having super armors that protect you from CC, even having a shield that can protect you from hard CC. This is a class that is just overall very strong in PvP. To close this one out, my good friend says, most importantly, Summoner is pretty. In my opinion, one of the sickest looking classes in the game. The original name of this class being Demonic was a perfect word to represent the theme and feel of the class. You equip double blades that resemble the Demon Hunter weapons from WoW, and you utilize both ranged and melee skills. When building enough meter, Shadow Hunters can transform into their demon form, allowing you access to more skills and more damage. There are a couple different builds for the Shadow Hunter end game, one that focuses more on the human form, while the other on the demon form. If you're into that flashy, edgy demonic style class, this is it for you. Despite the website saying Shadow Hunters are melee, in PvP, they are most certainly considered a ranged class. Shadow Hunters are a legitimate threat in the arena, as they have a strong ability to CC targets from afar, as well as doing high amounts of damage. The role of a Shadow Hunter in PvP centers around the positioning and catching of targets from afar, whether it's in the form of a peel or an engage. Mobility is also not a weakness of this class, however, a reasonable lack of super armor is. I also want to mention that Demonics have skills that are on the narrower side in terms of the width of the hitbox for those concerned about ping. Wielding multiple swords with attacks that land with power and speed. Welcome to Deathblade. Feeling like a cross between your typical swordsman and assassin class, playing a Deathblade will give you a combat experience that feels swift. Personally, I get Attack on Titan vibes from this class, but that's just me. The gameplay of a Deathblade is pretty straightforward, as your identity allows you to build meter and either spend it as a strong hit or spend it to buff yourself. Solid sustained damage coupled by generous hitboxes with skills that move you around. Playing a Deathblade can be a perfect match if you're looking for this style of play. As of the current version of the game, Deathblades are considered to be one of the top melee DPS selections in the arena thanks to its class design. Deathblades are one of the hardest classes to peel against due to their CC protection and hitboxes. They also have strong burst skills that are very effective, as they have a fair amount of range. However, having longer cooldowns on their harder hitting skills make the cooldown pacing of a blade similar to that of a Berserker. Interestingly enough, while blades do have some mobility in their skills, contrary to popular belief, their mobility is actually not their strong suit and hold them back a bit. Being a very strong selection when fighting other melees, Deathblades are put in check by various range classes for the most part.